UFC 312 full card breakdown and predictions. I'm going to be starting off with the early prelims, ending with the main event. Before we get on into it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let's get into it, boys. So we're starting off with the early prelim opener of Hyung Sung Park versus Niam Jargel. Two-man de barrel. Hard name to say, hard name to pronounce, but we got the first flyweight matchup. First matchup of the night is going to be a flyweight bout between these two guys. This is going to be a scrap, man. I'm already predicting this is going to be a scrap. It's going to be a fun fight. I think this is a dangerous fight for both guys. Hyung Sung Park has great finishing potential. Niam Jargel is a very dangerous Mongolian, man. He's very dangerous. I believe he fought in Macau not that long ago. Went to a split decision with Hernandez. Very close fight. And Hyung Sung Park is just coming off of a knockout win. Nice win over Ross. Pretty good win. Obviously, Hyung Sung Park, his record's very good. He's undefeated, but he has fought some lower competition. I will say that. He has fought some guys who have a lot of losses on the record and who aren't the highest level fighters and the highest level athletes. So, Hyung Sung Park may look like this amazing dynamic finisher, and he is very good. Don't get me wrong. He's a very good finisher, and he is dangerous, but he has fought some low competition. And Niam Jargel just came off of a split decision to Hernandez, who is a seasoned vet, man. He's a decently seasoned vet, and he's a pretty good fighter. It went to a split decision, and that was his first fight in the UFC. He's now coming up, and he's going to be fighting Hyung Sung Park. I think it's going to be a close fight. The odds suggest that Hyung Sung Park is the favorite. I understand why he is the favorite. He's undefeated, and all of his fights come by way of finish. But Niam Jargel is about the same. He just came off of a split loss to Carlos Hernandez. Is it Carlos? Yeah, I believe it's Carlos Hernandez, who is a good fighter. He's a good fighter. That's a tough fight to come into as your first fight, and it went to a split decision, and that is his only loss. So I think this fight should be more of a pick'em. This is a closer fight than I think the odds should suggest, and I am going to be picking Niam Jargel. I think Niam Jargel is a more scrappy fighter. I think he's going to be able to land the more powerful shots, and I don't think Hyung Sung Park is going to be able to finish Jargel as easily as the odds predict, as people have been predicting. I think Niam Jargel is a very tough fighter, and I think he's going to land the more damaging shots throughout the fight. So I am going to go Niam Jargel by decision. I think it's going to be a close decision, but I think Niam Jargel will get it done. So I will be picking him to win the first fight of the night. But we will move on to the next fight where we got Killian Salkid versus Anshul Jubilee. This fight won't be as close, I don't think, but we will see what happens. Anshul Jubilee 7-1, Kyun Sel Kid 1-0, but he has a lot more fights on his record. He's got a lot more fights in his career. But Killian seems like a pretty good prospect. He seems like a decent prospect coming out of Australia, I believe. And obviously, he's going to be the huge favorite. He's projected to be very good in this fight. I don't know, though. This one should be close, but I think Killian will get it done. Killian is a more well-rounded fighter, and Shul is more of a striker. I think he's more of a striker. He stays on the feet. He jabs. He lands some power shots. He's got one knockout in the UFC so far, but he just got knocked out as well. So I think Killian will be able to get his way with Anshul Jubilee. I think he's the bigger guy, and I think he's going to be the more damaging guy throughout the fight. Killian has a good ground game, and he's a levels above in striking, I believe, over Anshul Jubilee, who hasn't really shown that level of striking that we'd like to see out of him. So I am going to be going Killian Salkid. I can't say his last name, man. I'm going to be going Killian by decision or by finish. I think he could find a knockout over Anshul Jubilee, maybe in the later rounds. But we will move on to the next fight. Jonathan McAuliffe versus Kevin Jusay. Jonathan McAuliffe coming off of a nice submission win on Dana White Contender Series. Nice guillotine choke. Oh, no, it was a triangle choke. Sorry, nice triangle choke. And Kevin Jusay coming off of the loss to Brian Battle where he got knocked out on the feet, standing TKO. I think, obviously people are going to be thinking Kevin Jusay is the guy to pick here. I genuinely think Jonathan McAuliffe will get this one done. I think Kevin Jusay is a bit of an overrated French fighter. His record shows he's 10-3, decent fighter, but I think he's had some easy fights in the past, and he goes up against a guy in Brian Battle who is a mid-range fighter who absolutely beats down on Kevin Jusay. I think this will be the same case scenario. I think Jonathan McAuliffe is a bigger dude, even though Kevin Jusay is the taller guy. I think Jonathan McAuliffe will have more power behind his shots, and I think if it goes to the ground, he will find that submission on Kevin Jusay. I think Jonathan McAuliffe can finish this fight wherever he wants. Unlike Kevin Jusset, I think Kevin Jusset will have heavily rely to keep this fight on the feet. He's going to need to keep this fight on the feet, which I don't think he will be able to do. So I think if Jonathan McAuliffe can get that takedown, which I think he can, it will be over. I don't know if he will pull off the submission, but I will be going Jonathan McAuliffe by second round submission or knockout. I think he could get a ground and pound knockout or find that submission over Kevin Jusset. I just think Kevin Jusset is a bit overrated, man. And I think that was shown in the Brian Battle fight. He got beat down in France. Tough loss for him. We'll see what happens, but I think Jonathan McAuliffe is a good prospect coming out of Australia, so it will be interesting to see. But I will be going Jonathan McAuliffe by second round, sub or TKO, ground and pound. We will move on, though, to the final fight of the early prelim. Rong Zhu versus Cody Steele. This is a good fight, man. This is a good fight. Rong Zhu has been unlucky in his past few fights. Just lost to Christopher Padilla. By knockout, by TKO. His eye was swollen like a bubble gum. His eye was swollen like a bubble gum. There's no other way to explain it. His eye was humongous. If the ref didn't stop that fight, he would have lost his eye. So good call on the ref, good call on the judges and stuff to stop that fight, because that was bad. It was very bad. His eye was swollen bad. But Rong Zhu has been unlucky. Got submitted by Bahamondes before he fought Chris Padilla. I think it was a guillotine or was it a... Yeah, I think it was a guillotine. But he got subbed by Bahamondes, who is a great fighter. He's a good lightweight. And Chris Padilla is on the come up, but it was a rough loss for Rong Zhu. But Rong Zhu kept fighting, even though he was really badly injured and his eye was completely swollen shut. He is tough. He's very tough, but he's fighting a guy in Cody Steele who is a absolute unit in lightweight, man. This guy should be at welterweight. He's huge. He's really, really big for lightweight. Not necessarily tall, but very, very thick for lightweight. He could easily be weighing 170, 185, man. So Cody Steele's a very, very big guy. He did well in the Contender Series, Dana White Contender Series. He struggled a bit in the early rounds, but once he was able to start landing his shots, he found that knockout and got a nice contract from Dana White. Dana White's been hyping him up like crazy. He loves Cody Steele. This is the next American guy for him. So we'll see what happens. I do think this will be a close fight, but I'm going to have to side with Cody Steele. I think Cody Steele will have the more powerful shots in this fight, and I think he's going to be able to connect. I think he'll have to ease in, though, like he did in his last fight on the Dana White Contender Series, but he's just got a lot of power behind his punches, and Rong Zhu's been suffering a couple bad losses recently. I don't know if he'll be able to bounce back, but he has been training. He has been training with Alexander Volkanovski, Dan Hooker, Carlos Ulberg. He's been training with all these guys, I believe, in Australia. I think it's either in Australia or New Zealand, their camp, but he's been training with them. He is good. I could see Rong Zhu pulling off the upset, but I will be going with Cody Steele to get this one done by knockout in round 2 or round 3. We'll move on, though, to the regular prelims, where we got Colby Thickness. They don't show the pictures here. Colby Thickness versus Alexander Topuria. You hear that last name, Topuria, and you already know this is Ilya Topuria's younger brother, and this is Alexander Volkanovski's training partner, Colby Thickness. This is Volk versus Topuria 2.0. This is like the ripoff version of Volk versus Topuria. So it's an interesting fight. It is an interesting fight. Obviously, the odds are suggesting Topuria will destroy Thickness, but I'm going to be honest. I think Ilya Topuria's little brother is a little overrated. When you see brothers in the UFC or you see siblings in the UFC, there is always a worse one. And Ilya Topuria is top of the notch boxer, destroys people. He's 16-0. Alexander Topuria has one loss on his record. He's 5-1. Colby Thickness is 7-0. And Thickness has a good record. I know his name's funny, man. I'm trying not to laugh saying his name. I'll just call him Colby. I'll just keep saying Colby. But Colby's well-rounded, very well-rounded, tough guy. He's able to take the fight wherever he wants. Topuria, mostly a boxer, obviously. Same kind of background as Ilya Topuria. Alexander has the same kind of background as Ilya, just he's not as experienced. He doesn't have as much experience. All right. People are saying, oh, he's a Topuria. It's inevitable. They think that it's inevitable. I don't believe it's inevitable. I think Colby is going to give Alexander a run for his money, and I think this fight will be a lot closer than people expect. I think Colby Thickness could pull off this fight. I am going to go with Alexander Topuria. I'm going to go with Topuria. I do think he has better boxing, but I do believe that Colby has a solid chance to beat Alexander. And if he beats Alexander, Oh my goodness, the the UFC community is gonna go crazy. They're gonna be like, Volk got one in the bag, because Volkanovski is gonna be cornering Colby, and Ilya is gonna be cornering Alexander at UFC 312. So it is literally a Volkanovski versus Ilya Taporia 2.0. I'm gonna be rooting for Colby Thickness. I'll be honest, I'm rooting for Colby, but I am gonna be picking Alexander. I think he could find the knockout on Colby, but Colby's a great prospect. Alexander's a good prospect. Obviously, I feel like Alexander's gotten in this position because of his brother, so that's why I am going to be siding with Colby. But I'm going to be picking Alexander nonetheless. I'm going to stop making it so confusing. The pick is Alexander. The pick at heart is going to be Colby. I'm going to be rooting for Colby, but I will be picking Alexander. I think Alexander will get the decision on Colby. I don't think he will find the finish. But moving on, we got Wang Kong. Oh, why will it not? Okay, Wang Kong versus Bruno Brazil. My bad, guys. My bad. Wang Kong versus Bruno Brazil. This is a good fight. Obviously, Wang Kong is a freaking 5-1 favorite. Doesn't make sense to me, man. She just got fraud checked bad. Wang Kong just got fraud checked bad at UFC Macau. She was, I believe, she was also a 5-1 favorite. Got knocked down, got dropped up against the fence. Got her back taken, got submitted. Got submitted out cold. Wang Kong prospect dropped just like that, man. She was 6-1, or she was 6-0. Now she's 6-1. Bruna Brazil coming off of a win. I believe it was in London, not that long ago. But she's coming off the win over what's her name? Ooh, what's her name? Molly. I think it's Molly. Anyways, the meatball. Bruna Brazil, good win over Molly though, over the meatball. And Wang Kong just came off of a pretty bad loss. I think this fight's gonna be closer than people think, man. Bruna Brazil showed in that fight against Molly that she was able to take her down, hold her on the ground, land ground and pound. Something that Wang Kong heavily struggles with is on the ground. I don't know. She's gonna have to show that she's improved her ground game, but these girls stand at the same height, same reach. Wang Kong has only fought smaller girls and has been the taller, bigger woman at flyweight against her opponents. And Bruna Brazil is big. She's the same build as Wang Kong. She's got good striking, and she can take it to the ground. I'm going to be picking Bruna Brazil to get this one done by decision. I think Wang Kong is overrated, heavily overrated too. I don't understand where the hype's coming from. I know, she's got this Joker act and shit, but when you get finished, you can't be pulling that Joker act at the weigh-ins, all right? I don't have any hype behind Wang Kong anymore. I think she's going to get knocked out, or she will lose a decision to Bruna Brazil. I do hope she gets knocked out. I'm going to be honest, I do not like Wang Kong, man. After what she did at UFC Macau, she's doing all her Joker act and stuff, and then she gets dropped and then gets submitted. I was watching that fight and I was straight up laughing, man. I was happy. I'm not going to lie. I'm not praying on her downfall, but I do think Bruna Brazil will get this win by decision, though. And we move on. We move on to the next fight. Tom Nolan versus Vyacheslav Borshev. Man, this is another fight. This is another fight where I don't understand why Borshev is the favorite. The odds are quite close here, but I'm going to be going Tom Nolan. Right off the bat, I'm going to say Tom Nolan. I believe Vyacheslav Borshev is very overrated. I think Borshev, obviously he's a Russian. He's got a fun fight style, fun boxing style, but he's not that well rounded, and he doesn't deserve to be a favorite in every single fight he's in. It doesn't make any sense to me. Vyacheslav Borshev has 3 wins in the UFC and I think 3 losses. I think that's what his record is. 3-3. I'm pretty sure he's 3-3 in the UFC at least. Got submitted by Chase Hooper and just barely beat Lon who literally never won in the UFC. Never won in the UFC. He won a split decision over James Lon. It was a fun fight. Don't get me wrong. It was a fun fight, but it shouldn't have been that close for the odds that what Borshev was at, and what Borshev is projected to be. He's projected to be this super fun, amazing striker that destroys everybody, but he doesn't, man. He doesn't. And when it comes to the ground, he struggles. And Tom Nolan can bring it to the ground and he can find a submission. He's got long arms, very long arms, and he's got a good style to beat Vyacheslav Borshev. I do believe Tom Nolan will be able to get the finish over Borshev. If Tom Nolan has the right game plan of taking Borshev down to the ground and finding that submission, I believe the fight will be over. So I will be going Tom Nolan by submission. I think he will submit Vyacheslav Borshev. I think on the feet it'll be very close. I think Borshev will be the better striker. But if Tom Nolan can get to the mat, it will be over. I truly believe that. Or at least he will be able to hold down Borshev and land ground and pound and look for that choke for 3 rounds. I don't think Borshev will be able to survive. He struggled with Chase Hooper, got destroyed by Chase Hooper, who is basically the same build as Tom Nolan. Super skinny, lengthy guy, has long arms. This is the matchup that just doesn't go well for Borshev. Borshev needs somebody who will strike with him only, who will only strike with him. Somebody like James Law on top. That's really his prime kind of fighter that he wants to be fighting against. And Tom Nolan is not that. I think Tom Nolan will find the submission in this one. So I will be going Tom Nolan by round 3 submission. Late round 3 submission, man. But we move on to the final prelim. Jack Jenkins versus Gabriel Santos. Jack Jenkins is a fun fighter, man. I'm going to be honest. I like Jack Jenkins and I like Gabriel Santos. Both these guys are pretty fun. Jack Jenkins coming off of a win over Herbert Burns. Let's be honest, that's not really a flashy win. Herbert Burns is a bum. He is a bum. Like I was saying before, not all brothers do well in the UFC, man. There's usually one brother that's pretty good, and then one brother who's just straight ass. So that's Herbert Burns, and Jack Jenkins beat him down. Herbert Burns just quit at the end of the fight. So, not really a shocker. But then we got Gabriel Santos, just came off of a win over Yiza. And I know Gabriel Santos' record in the UFC isn't amazing. He's 2 losses and then just got the win. But he lost to good people, man. He lost to Lerone Murphy. He lost a split decision to Lerone Murphy, actually. Very close fight to Lerone Murphy. So Gabriel Santos, he's a good fighter. Very well-rounded. He's a good striker. I think the fight will go the distance if Gabriel Santos can bring it there. He's not a great finisher. He does train with Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira will be in his corner, I believe. From what I've seen, I think Charles will be in his corner. So, Gabriel Santos has good BJJ. He's a taller fighter. He's going to be able to outstrike Jack Jenkins. And I think he will get the decision. Jack Jenkins is a good fighter. He's a very fun fighter, and he's got power in his hands. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know if he'll be able to close the distance and really deal the damage that he wants. And if the fight goes to the ground, Gabriel Santos will be the one taking him down and looking for the submission. So I will be going for Gabriel Santos. I think Gabriel Santos will get the decision, but I think it'll be close. I think this could end in a split decision. We are in Australia, so maybe it goes to Jack Jenkins, but I think it'll go to Gabriel Santos. I think unanimous decision for Gabriel Santos. But we move on to the main card where we got Jake Matthews and Francisco Prada opening it up. Jake Matthews, man, he's always been a guy who comes to Australia. They always book Jake Matthews Australia. And, Jake Matthews is up and down, but he always beats the bums. And I do believe Francisco Prada is a bit of a bum. I think Jake Matthews will run through Francisco Prada. Prado. What am I saying? Prado. Francisco Prado, he's got 1 win in the UFC over Azaitar Ottman, who is a guy that we've seen just is on a rough streak right now. Been knocked out 3 times in a row. So it's not the most impressive win for Prado. And I think Matthews has the experience, and he's super experienced, and he has the height advantage and the reach advantage. I think he's going to be much bigger than Francisco Prado. And I think he's just going to outstrike him. If he does need a grapple, he can, but I think this will be mostly a striking match, and I think he will be able to school Francisco Prado on the feet for the entirety of the fight. I just don't think this is going to be too close. I think it will go the distance, though. Prado is a very tough guy. He's a very tough guy. Had a rough loss to Daniel Zellhuber last time out. Zellhuber was beating him up, and he was a taller, lengthier guy. Zellhuber's not a huge buff guy, but he's tall. He's got range, and that's Jake Matthews. I think it'll be the same outcome. I think he'll be able to jab at range, keep him at range for the entirety of the fight, and pick him apart. So I'm going to be going Jake Matthews by decision. Yeah, that's all there really is to be said with this one. But we move on to Jimmy Crute versus Rodolfo Bellato. Man, I really want to see Jimmy Crute get a win. It's tough. He's been on a bad loss streak recently. Lost to Alonzo Menifield, got submitted. It was kind of a guillotine, neck crank sort of thing, but looked like a tight choke, so he had to tap. Jimmy Crute's been on a downfall, but he's fought tough guys. He's fought very tough guys. Had an injury against Anthony Smith, got knocked out by Jamal Hill, who ended up becoming champ, and then lost to Alonzo Menifield. So tough losses, but they're all tough opponents. Jimmy Crute's fought high-level guys, unlike Rodolfo Bellato, who's fought Ihor Potieria. That's who he's fought. And where is Ihor? Ihor was on a 4-fight loss streak and is now not in the UFC. So I can't really rate Rodolfo's fight. And it was some lousy ground and pound. No offense to Rodolfo Bellato. Lousy ground and pound. I don't think he's got the power to knock out Jimmy Crute like everybody has had that knocks out Jimmy Crute. Rodolfo is going to heavily rely on getting him to the ground and trying to ground and pound him or just land a heavy shot. But I think Jimmy Crute can survive that. I hope he survives that. I think he can survive it, and I think he can wear down Rodolfo Bellato. So I'm going to be going Jimmy Crute. I know it's a tough pick because he's been on a bit of a downfall, but I'm going to be going Jimmy Crute to get this decision. I don't think he can knock out Rodolfo Bellato, but I think he will be able to land the better shots and maybe take it to the ground if he needs to. But I do believe if Jimmy Crute loses this fight, I don't know if he'll be out of the UFC, but if not, I think he should move down to middleweight. He's quite a small light heavyweight. I think he could make a good, decent shot at middleweight. He's an explosive guy, got good power. He just struggles with the bigger dudes. And Rodolfo is a good, really big dude at light heavyweight, but I think Jimmy Crute will be the crisper fighter in this matchup. But we move on to the next fight, Justin Tafa versus Talson Teixeira. Justin Tafa back on the main card. You love to see it. This is an interesting fight. Talson Teixeira is 6'7". He is 6'7" at heavyweight. We know what happened last time there was a 6'7" dude at heavyweight. You know what I'm talking about. You guys know who I'm talking about. The Cuban with the blonde hair. I can't think of his name right now, but you know who I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about. It didn't go well. He didn't have grappling. He didn't have wrestling. He was just taken down and decisioned like twice or 2 or 3 times in a row. Got kicked out of the UFC. Let's hope it's not the same thing with Talson Teixeira. He's coming off of a win on the Dana White Contender Series. Nice knockout. I believe it was like a left hook, dropped him, a little ground and pound, knocked him out. Justin Tafa, he's an up and down fighter. He's all over the place, man. Back on the main card, 7-4. I don't know why we got Justin Tafa on the main card, but you love to see it. It's going to be a good heavyweight fight. I think somebody will get knocked out. And I think Talson Teixeira will have the range, to outbox Justin Tafa. But if Tafa does try a takedown and takes Teixeira down, he could just hold him down. Tafa's a bit of a blob, man. He's in a bit of a blob competition with Shamil. So if he gets on top of Talson Teixeira, I think he just sits there, bro. He just sits on top of him and lands ground and pound. So, Tafa's not really the kind of guy to shoot a takedown. He's the guy to, bang it out, stand and bang it out, which you love to see at heavyweight. He's had some good heavyweight, throwdowns, and he just throws hands. You love to see it. Justin Tafa throws hands. I think he's going to throw hands with Talson Teixeira. Teixeira's going to have the range, the height advantage. I think he will knock out Justin Tafa, but it's going to be a scrap. I think it'll be a scrap for as long as it lasts, but I will be going Talson Teixeira by knockout in round 1 or round 2. I don't think this one's going to last too long. But we move on to the co-main event, Zhang Weili versus Tatiana Suarez. This is one where it's going to be close. It's going to be a close fight, but Tatiana Suarez is so inactive, man. I was looking at her record. She started fighting in 2016, and she's fought maybe like 8 or 9 times since 2016. She fights maybe once a year. She took 4 years off. She fights 1 to 2 times a year. She took like 4 years off. I don't know what happened. Wait. No. Oh my goodness. Wait. I do know what happened. Oh, boys, I'm a horrible person. I forgot Tatiana Suarez has beaten cancer. My respect goes to her. Cancer's really tough. I'm not going to get into that right now. We're not going to get into that. I'm not trying to get controversial or anything, but she has beat cancer. I don't know if that's when she was beating cancer. I don't know all the details, so I'm just going to shut up about it. But Tatiana Suarez, nonetheless, has struggled to be active, which I understand. But Zhang Weili has been quite active, and she's been a good champion. She's a pretty dominant champion, coming off of a win over Yan Xiaonan. Tatiana Suarez coming over off of a win over, what's her name? Jessica Andrade. Nice submission. I think Tatiana Suarez has a lot more submission ability over Zhang Weili, but Weili's a small girl. She's not really easy to submit. We've seen that. When she fought Yan Xiaonan, she was wrapped up in some difficult situations. She also got Yan Xiaonan in difficult situations, but both women didn't go out. And we'll see if Tatiana Suarez can get that submission, but she will definitely be the bigger woman. Zhang Weili is buff. She's quite big, but Tatiana Suarez is lengthy. She's tall. She'll be able to wrap up a choke quite easily. I will be going with Tatiana Suarez to get the submission over Zhang Weili. I think Weili is a good champ, but I think it is possible that Tatiana Suarez finds that submission here. But we move on to the main event, Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland, the rematch. And man, I've been going back and forth with this one. I've been going back and forth. I'm going to be picking Dricus du Plessis. He's my guy. I ride with Dricus du Plessis. You know, a long time ago I said, oh, it's going to be a masterclass for Sean Strickland. I don't think it'll be a masterclass. I think it'll be a close fight. I think it'll be a decision, just like last time. Close decision. But I think Dricus du Plessis this time will implicate some takedowns, and I think he will actually get Sean Strickland to the ground, hold him down for a round or two, land some ground and pound. I think he'll be able to actually get Sean down and hold him down, unlike their first fight where Sean was able to get up. You know, he's got good takedown defense. He's got good defense in general. We'll see if Dricus du Plessis sharpens up his shots, is able to crack through Sean Strickland's guard. But I think Dricus du Plessis will be the more damaging guy, and I think this time he will be able to get Sean Strickland in some sticky situations, because last time it was very close. Don't get me wrong. Sean Strickland outstruck DDP, but DDP landed the more powerful shots. He did get a couple takedowns. You know, Sean Strickland's just jabbing and teeping. It doesn't look the best to the judges, but we'll see if Sean Strickland mixes it up. I am going to be going Dricus du Plessis by decision, though. I think he will pull off the decision. I think this time it'll be unanimous instead of a split, but I think Sean Strickland's tough, DDP's tough. I don't think either of these guys will finish each other. So we will finish the video off there, boys. I'm sorry, this has been a long-ass video. If you guys did enjoy, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, drop your comments down below which fight you guys are most entertained and most excited for, and I'll catch you boys in the next one. See you.